Now we are live.
All right. We'll just hang around here. Oh, I popped out the chat and it disappeared. Where we at? Here we are. Cool. How's it going, everybody? Just sitting around. Wow, a lot of people showed up real quick. Usually it takes a minute. We haven't even been live 1 minute. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Hey, top of the stream to you, Andre. We'll get that out of the way. Who else is in here? Chew's in here. Sharky's in here. Oh, you're 25 people, Sharky? That's good. Hey, Jedi. Hey, Terry. Did I miss anybody else? Traumahawk, what's up? What's up, J Basic? Excuse me for having gum, but my allergies are pretty bad today, so I'm kind of like pushing around sinus pressure. If that's even a thing that works. You can see I've got my, oh no, you couldn't see. I'm literally waiting to take, I should take these allergy pills right now, actually. Before we get started, so they kick in. I used to be so bad at taking pills when I was a kid. It freaked me out. And then I got walking pneumonia. And then I went to the hospital. And then I was in a coma. And then I took every pill from that point forward when I was a little kid. What's up, Nomad? Good to see you. Hey, World Edit. Hey, Mini Maven. Hey, Shadow. Yeah, we'll just wait like another minute or two. Today's paint job, pretty easy. Less intense than the Duke last time. Really, this one's just kind of armor, bags, and a big cloak. Nothing too crazy. I guess I'll ask the people that are here as people are coming in. So I did ask the Discord previously as well. So we're kind of floating different ideas back and forth based on some feedback that we've gotten about Miniature Monday, and then just kind of just as we approach doing the show for like a year or whatever, that what I had asked essentially was like, so moving forward, if we were to have a kit come out that had 3 miniatures instead of 4, with 2 being sort of at the basic, tabletop level painting that we've done this whole time, but then the 3rd miniature takes up 2 episodes, and we take that to a higher level, if that's something that people would be interested in. I mean, we could go so far as even offering, like, a kit that has a hero miniature and then like a big monster, right? And we could paint that up over the course of 3 episodes and then 1 episode on the hero, right? Essentially just kind of shifting. So, because we started to go the other route, so I know that like there's a kit coming in the future that has 5 bad guys and then 2, the NPC and the hero, and then the 5 bad guys get broken up into 2 different episodes, right? So like, We've thought about the idea and sort of approved the idea of like, if there's more miniatures in a kit that require more painting, then we can split those up, into multiple episodes, and it still fits, because every kit has to hit 4 episodes, that's just what it's going to be. But we can't increase the quality while retaining the same amount of miniatures or expanding in that way, right? Because that just increases the time that it takes me to prepare them, and then also, you know, the actual episode count. So, you know, we would either shrink, like, you would never shrink the amount of paints that you guys get, but it would just shrink the amount of miniatures while increasing what you're actually learning and all that good stuff. So, but I mean, the feedback for that idea was pretty good. Shadow, that idea won't work though, because the way that things are now, the production is so inconsistent that, like, if we had to do a swap on a kit in the future, like, if you look at the rest of Q4, that doesn't make sense, because it essentially, we would only then be allowed to do that like 3 times a year, I think, or like 4 times a year, if I'm not mistaken. So this is something that I would want to do, like, maybe every other month, right? So I want more frequency than only relying on an extra Monday, if that makes sense. But yeah. But beyond, so I'll just go ahead and stop all suggestions other than. So what I'm telling you is the only feedback I'm looking for. So I don't want any other ideas. Not that I don't appreciate it, but I'll put it this way: you guys are very far removed from all of the issues that happen in the production of putting the kit together. That's why none of these kits ever have come out on time, right? Like, there are lots of problems that happen. So the only thing up for negotiation is reduction in the amount, if that means increasing the quality. And I think everybody is okay with that. But I was just feeling that because I know that a lot of people aren't do a 1 hour paint job. Well, we definitely don't do it for just an hour. Usually it's an hour and a half to 2 hours, but yeah, that was just kind of what we're looking at in terms of reducing the count if we increase the quality for you, and I think that should work out. And, you know, like I said, that all has to do more so with the production side of it. I would say in terms of production, like, I obviously have to do the painting ahead of time for the actual, like, release of the images and then what they put on the boxes. Then it's up to them to actually grab all the inventory, make sure they have all the paints in stock if they have to make more of the paints, things like that. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it, because there's just so much that kind of goes into it that a lot of people don't realize. But all right, so we've got enough people rolling in now. We can go ahead and get started. So, if you can order before the stream. Well, so, you know, the plan is right now, there was a big change that happened, and, you know, we're trying to push that production out so far that, you know, like, my task now is pretty much by the end of the month, I have to do 6 months worth of painting. So that should give us enough leeway that nothing is ever late moving forward, I would hope. It's just if I can actually get that done or not, you know. And I think we should be able to do that. Yeah, I did get new glasses, so I got heart-shaped glasses. I don't know if you can tell because they're rimless. But yeah, I figured life is so terrible that you know, may as well get something that makes people happy when they see it. But alright, so the first thing we're going to do today, we're going to take it nice and easy. Let's just start with the armor. So we're going to start off with Skeleton Key the same way that we did last time. We'll wash it down, all that goodness. And we're ready to rock and roll. So I'm going to go ahead and mix my Skeleton Key because I haven't touched it in a while. This weekend, we've got a Patreon class. We are working on something. I don't even know what we're working on. Give me a second, I'll tell you. I know we're moving into some cool stuff. Let's check it out and see. So, August 8th, which would be Saturday. Yep, so August 8th, we're working on the cart miniature, which seems kind of interesting, but what we're doing is painting wood and natural textures, and then the last weekend, so that would be the August 22nd, we're going to be painting up the big dumpster. So that big dumpster Bones Black miniature. It comes on a sprue. It's really, really big. We're going to be painting that up, doing freehand. We'll probably do graffiti on it. Different things like that. I did also buy some of the clear flame miniatures so I can make it a dumpster fire. We're probably going to do 2020 on the side of it. Yada, yada, yada. We'll make it fun. But so that's what we've got on the menu for Patreon for the Basic and the Scholar Plus tiers. And then, of course, we're continuing the King of Hell paint-along. Last week, I decided to show this off for free. Typically, this is for our one of our higher tiers, but we worked on the facial structure on this guy. So you can see right here. This is a great sculpt. This one's not a Bones Black mini, but it's just a regular Bones miniature. But you can see that there's so much opportunity to highlight and bring out these different parts of the face and everything involved with that. Up underneath the lips, you can do these pouty lips that are happening, highlighting different sections of the snarl, things like that. So we've been having fun with that as well, and those happen every single week on Wednesday evening. So if you do sign up for the $20 tier, you're actually getting twice the amount of content a month if you were at the $10 tier. So it's just kind of fun. And that's, the level of painting that we're doing there is sort of like what I'd be doing if I was doing something for a commercial client or like a competition piece, stuff like that. So that's a lot of people have been having fun with that. And if you are on the Patreon and you're not at that tier, you've been seeing people share those images as well in our regular Facebook group to get feedback and different things like that. But that's really what we've got going on. Private lesson wise, honestly, this entire month is going to be a nightmare because I'm very scheduled up. But never really be too afraid to ask me if you are interested in a private lesson. I can typically make it happen one way or the other. But I just know this month I am in some hot water making it all work. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just taking Skeleton Key, doing a nice little base coat on all of the armor here. Getting the kneecaps. I will say on this miniature, the mold placement was pretty weird because it has like the hardest mold line to get rid of on the interior portion. But how is Hobby at Home looking? Well, again, like I said, I have to do so much work to continue the Miniature Monday stuff and get that rolling. So I don't remember when I announced it. I think I announced it last week. But so I'm aiming for a full... Oh, look at me. I left a piece of flash. Let me cut that off. I'm aiming for August 23rd to be the sale date for just, general public. It'll go live, just whatever. Like, you go to the website, you'll be able to purchase everything. And then a week before that, so the 23rd is a Sunday, so then Monday of the 17th, so 3 full weeks from now, or I guess 2 full weeks, right? I don't know how to put that. 2 weeks and a weekend, I guess. But whatever. Either way, that is when the Patreon people will get access to buying those classes. And then the next day, on the 7th or 18th or whatever, 24 hours later, then anyone that signed up that's not a patron, that signed up on the website for the early access or whatever, then you'll be allowed to buy into the class. So, since there's only 10 classes available, they're going to sell out. I already know they are. And I'm offering 2 different levels. So we have one that is sort of a basic tabletop level class, and then one that is much more advanced. So depending on what you're looking for, it should be pretty cool. I haven't announced the more advanced miniature. I did make a change to what I'm going to be doing for that. So that's still a surprise for everybody. But the other one is the Treasure Rocky. So that'll come to you at your house and all that good stuff. And I'll have videos unboxing what comes in the kits or the classes and all that good stuff as well. I always, since we're doing Miniature Monday, I'm calling them kits, but it's just a class and you get a miniature that's pre-painted in some areas depending upon what we're learning. So that's kind of the trick to all that. But that's what we're looking for. And then remember, like I said, let me see. Haha! I do have a part of a kit though, or not a kit, but it's kind of like a there'll be one box available that is a comes with a hat, and then it also comes with an airbrush mask that has the logo on it. So that'll be available just for one of the boxes. I guess technically then that means there's only 9 slots available for the first class. I don't know. Either way, I wanted to do something commemorative and special for the person that would care. Alright, so I don't think I need another base coat on this. I think we actually did pretty good this time around in terms of the skeleton key. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the Duke. We're going to take that gunmetal blue, and we're going to turn that into a wash and apply it. Hey, Graz, thank you for the sub. Graz, didn't you win the airbrush? Or one of the airbrushes? I was there for the drawing. I don't quite remember.
Oh, he did, but he so graciously gifted it to me.
Oh, that's nice. So that means what we'll do for whenever I demo the airbrush is we'll make sure that Justin has a compressor and a setup, and we'll do a Zoom call, and he'll be painting with his airbrush, and I teach him how to use his airbrush. Is that the idea?
Oh yeah, Roz is so altruistic. It's almost certainly what happened.
All right, so once again, we're just gonna make a wash out of this to apply on top of all of her skeleton key metallics. Is Justin quiet again? I don't know how that's... Hold on. We'll crank that down even further. You guys should be able to hear him.
I don't think he heard my joke.
There we go. That should be easy. You want an old-fashioned metal lunchbox? Well, I'm surprised that's not on... because they have a Zazzle store. You should be able to do that on Zazzle. That's for sure.
Should be better now, maybe one.
Yeah.
Testing.
Yeah, you should be louder. Alright. I have been seeing people's other mechanical dungeon minis, and you guys are doing really great. I'm glad to see that the all the dungeon dressings and the Red Bull turned out really well for everybody. That seems to be a big hit, so they look really good. And what's funny too, I did see some of you guys were like, when I forgot that I had mixed the dry brush at the end with the 1-to-1 ratio of the ruby red to whatever that is, the dragon bronze or whatever. It was funny because some of you were like, yeah, I'd already done it when he mentioned he forgot he did that. So I do like that we have some variance in our results. I think that's pretty hilarious. But it's always so far about, like, there usually is such a delay between when I paint the miniatures the first time around and then when we paint them on camera that, like, I would say it's a miracle that we get close, but that's the only time when I really just completely forgot what I did there until I'd already put paint on it. But I don't think our track record's too bad. Alright, so I may do another coat here, sort of just right in the middle on the breastplate. But otherwise I think we're looking cool, so I'll just let this dry a little bit. So let's see where we're headed on this. So we've got the metals, and then we have the pink, and we have the blue. I think we should probably work on the LED blue portion on the back, just because that color requires a little bit more love than others to get good coverage. So we'll start that process here in a second, right after we do the second application. So I think I'm pretty much good to do my second application here, so I'll go ahead and do that. I just want to darken things up a little bit in the shadows. They don't need to be super, super bright. Justin, do you know if the Undead kit is going live this week?
I think we talked briefly actually in the meeting this morning about building them. So maybe I don't actually have a date. I think Collins knows.
Okay. Well, we start that kit next week, so there we go.
I imagine then if it starts next week, it's probably I'll think. Wow, can you guys not hear me at all?
I can definitely hear you, and our settings are what they're always set to, so I think we're just dealing with people that can't hear you in general. Because, yeah, say something for me.
Testing, testing, testing.
Yeah, your volume jumps a ton. So let me do the volume mixer. All right, say something again.
Testing, testing, testing.
People should be able to hear you just fine.
Thank you for the sub. Roll with Adventure RPG.
No change. Well, that's impossible. That's literally impossible.
That's weird. This is the this is the only show that we ever have issue with volume.
Cause yeah, I literally just reduced the output 50%. So bad compression settings. There are no compression settings, so. And I honestly just don't care enough. I literally don't care. There's nothing more annoying than being told about a problem we can't fix once we're already live, so. Alright. Terry, it has nothing to do with shipping. It has everything to do with them putting the kit together. And the shipping is always the same. Luckily for me now, I used to have 1 day shipping from Reaper, now I have 2 day shipping. So that's not too big of a difference for me. Alright, so now I'm going to grab Noir Black as we get ready to work on the cloak. I should have included a slightly darker blue for this kit, but I don't think it's too big of an issue. Let me make sure I spin our LED blue here successfully. One time when we were having the audio issues, Justin, it was because your mic input was set at 40%.
Let me see. Hold on.
You sounded like you always do, so it's always a mystery on our end. And I just killed it even further on our end.
Okay, I'm gonna experiment with this. Tell me, I don't want to blow your ears out in making it louder, so.
Hey Graz, yeah, so Reaper was supposed to make an announcement, but they definitely left them out. So at least the last 2 weeks, we've been telling everybody, send an email out, and that way, you know, they could get them to you in time. So I don't know if they made an announcement or not, but they were supposed to. Other than me mentioning it to everybody on the streams, obviously. Since I don't have access to their social media pages, I can't update everybody. Alright, so what I did, this is probably a, gosh, I don't even know. It's probably one tiny tip of Noir Black mixed in with the LED blue. LED blue is a super weak pigment, so if you add anything darker to it, it's definitely going to have a freak out, so just know that going into it. You probably don't want to mix it up on your palette from Noir Black, you want to mix it down from LED blue, but just a little bit darker. I may glaze into the shadows too a little bit, but we'll see. I can't remember how I eventually did it. We've got another miniature. Actually, it's the miniature that we showed off for the ReaperCon kit. we showed off the big fish guy, right? If I'm not mistaken. That one also requires a little bit of love because that light blue pigment. So that'll be the only challenge when we paint him, is making sure you guys are mixed for success. All right, cool. So we got that. So I just mixed in a little bit more noir black so that way I can push this color into the shadows. So this is just like our typical 1-to-1 ratio. Let me see, I'll move this a little bit more over there. I wonder if Justin's been trying to talk this whole time and he doesn't realize we lost him. Because I know that happens. Anytime somebody's like, I'm gonna adjust my mic, let me know if it works, and then they just disappear. I actually applied it all the way on this side, just so we can highlight it up a little bit easier. But you can see this color's only a little bit different. Yeah, he's probably on mute. The worst for me is this headset has a mute button, and so all the time I'll, like, if I'm talking to Sydney, I'll be like, you know, all right, I'm gonna run to the bathroom, and then for whatever reason I always take these off with my left hand, probably because that's where the cable is, and so I grab it and the mute button is right here, so you're hearing me, maybe not hearing. Oh, I don't use this, sorry, I'm using my Yeti, but there's a mute button built in, so all the time I'm like, why isn't this working?
How about now?
Oh, you sound a lot different. You don't sound bad or anything.
Yeah, well, no, that's because I switched to my my high-end mic, and I'm getting better Windows volume output with this one, so it's actually possible that my headset mic is dying, which...
You see how much better he sounds? Immediately? Does he sound better?
Anyone else hear me better?
You're definitely louder.
Collins is trolling.
Yeah, you sound completely different.
Oh, apparently I'm muffled?
Dim and fuzzier. Well, see, that's why we don't try and fix problems. Because it doesn't matter what you do. You sound a lot louder on my end, and you're also coming through, like my mixer is showing that you're coming through a lot louder, so... People were saying they couldn't hear you before. They definitely can now.
Weird. It's weird because you can hear me through Discord clearly, right? Like I sound crystal clear to you?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. And what's funny too, whenever we go back and we watch the VOD on this, you're gonna sound totally fine, like you always do. Alright, so now we're ready to just layer up with LED blue. So this LED blue is only brought down maybe 10%.
Testing, Collins. Testing.
Let's just get Collins in here on his phone as he walks around one of the empty new buildings, and then that way people can see the difference between what you sound like and that.
Yeah, Collins is actually texting me. He said it sounds quiet on his end.
That's, well, I can't help anything. Like, literally, so the only thing I can do is crank this up super loud, and then crank this down to, like, volume 1. So now, watch what happens. So, now Justin's gonna say something, and he's gonna sound like one of those extra crunchy memes. So go ahead and say something, Justin.
Testing. Testing.
So if that's not louder, then we're just never gonna listen to anybody again about audio volume. Pretty much.
Oh, they said loud and clear. Excellent.
Well, what's funny is like you are actually set higher than my input on my mic.
That's really weird. That's
Yeah.
weird.
And I have no gain on my mic either.
Well, we want to make sure you're not quiet either. So can you guys still hear Josh well? All right. So both of our audio is good so far. Is the music still good? All right. Well then, as long as all these things work out, I guess we're no one breathe or blink.
Yeah, exactly right. Oh, I shouldn't have had gum in. The troll didn't work. All right, that's fine. That's funny. We tried.
Yeah, I mean, this is the funny thing is this is pretty much just par for the course when it comes to audio equipment when streaming. Unfortunately, at least in my experience.
Right. I did see somebody ask a question here. Hold on. Most streamers and pros just mix their paint with their brush. Doesn't it destroy the brush? No. No. It does not. So, the reason why... Now, one difference between me and a lot of streamers is that I actually went to college for art. So I have a fine art degree. The reason why you see painters, especially acrylic artists and oil painters, is that they mix their paint on a palette using a palette knife. The reason you do that is because it's very amateur-y and not as pigment friendly to mix your colors on your palette with your brush. It doesn't really have anything to do now with oil paints. It sort of will destroy a brush if you're using natural hair bristles, but you really don't want to do that if you're an oil painter. But not everybody has access to the same materials or whatever. But so the only reason that you do that is because you don't get clean pigment application when you're painting on a canvas. So like if you're essentially what happens is you mix on the canvas and it looks really amateurish. You don't have clean transitions or applications of color. Like the easiest way to see the difference in that in application is if you look at early impressionist artists. They're actually mixing and applying color. So like German impressionism, a lot of those early artists, that's what they were doing, and that's why it was so shocking to like traditional still life painters and things like that, right? Because it was so messy. And then the difference after that started happening, when it was then adopted by more traditional painters, is they started then mixing on the palette with a palette knife first. And then that's kind of true, like all of the studio instructors that I had in college, they would tell you like, you are trash and, really, really hobby craft artisty if you don't mix before your paintbrush actually goes onto the palette. And so like we just kind of had it beaten into our heads that was always the wrong thing to do. When it comes to miniature painting and everything else like that, the actual application of the color is meant to be layered in certain ways that it's not really going to make a difference. We're also not painting on flat surfaces, so that way if things are mixed, like if you're wet blending on a miniature, specifically if you do two brush blending, anything like that, it's not going to be noticeable and it's not going to look messy because you're not painting directly on a flat surface like you are when you're working on a canvas. So that's really the only like direction that your question takes me in, is like, well, yeah, that is true, and the concern is true at least for technical aspects and sort of just like training aspects in fine art and in studio art in general. When it comes to mixing miniature paint on a palette, things like that, I use natural hair bristles, so it's really not going to hurt the brush in any way. What hurts the brush the most is not cleaning it. And then everybody knows too, right? Whenever I'm applying color or anything like that, my brush is always completely saturated and wet which helps the paint come off whenever I wash it off, as infrequently as I do. And then that is what's going to prevent, 90% of the problems that you run into, with a unclean brush, things like that. And that's how all the brush control and detail work can be done. With a natural bristle brush, with a synthetic brush, it doesn't necessarily matter as much. It just depends as much on the actual shape and condition that the tip is in. But that's how you can keep a really fine point and do really fine detailed work by making sure the brush is wet. And that's kind of more of the concern. As long as the brush is always wet, you're not really going to destroy it as much as you would if you're just like slamming brush on or slamming paint on there with a dry brush. And then honestly, the thing that's going to destroy your brush the most frequently is going to be dry brushing. And as you guys know, you pretty much will never see me do it ever. What about paint getting under the ferrule? So yeah, paint getting under the ferrule, again, just means you don't have a wet brush and you're not cleaning the brush. It's pretty much like the way that I do my painting, it always is going to happen, but I just clean the brush and it doesn't actually dry. So, but you'll see some painters like, who's really good about it. Angel Giraldez is really good about it. You'll see him with like a completely... Well, he also paints with a bigger brush. I paint with a size 1. He'll use like a size 2 typically. But he'll have a longer brush, so he only gets paint on the tip of the brush. I use a size 1, an English fuller round, so it's not as big and doesn't have as much volume as brushes like that. So, whenever I'm mixing paint, 9 times out of 10, it's going to go all over the entire body of the brush and up into the ferrule. But again, if my brush is wet and then I just take it to clean it off, it's all going to flow out. Nothing's going to get trapped. Nothing's going to dry, anything like that. And then, obviously, using a brush cleaner and conditioner, something like that, will prevent all those problems. So, there's a million ways to ruin a brush, but there's really only a few ways to make sure that they, keep things cool. Let me see. Lacquer for finished mini? Oh, you're just talking about varnish? Yeah, I just use Vallejo Mecha Air. That's like the best varnish you can use if you have an airbrush. But otherwise, I mean, everybody has a million different answers. So, and also, actually, to answer what Shadow Raven just said, there's no real difference in protection versus gloss or matte. So the difference that you're seeing is the actual pigment that is adding a thicker layer with gloss varnish wears down at the same rate as matte varnish. The only product out there that is worse than either of them is a reworkable fixative, which no one would ever use, I would hope, on a miniature unless it's like a competition piece and you're worried that something will go wrong, so that way you can reactivate certain layers. But there's almost functionally no difference between the two, other than the added pigment that allows the gloss to happen. Because, yeah, there used to be the advice, right, that people gave all the time that you should gloss coat a miniature first, then apply matte varnish afterwards. And they'd be like, well, it's because the gloss varnish is giving you a better protective coat. But the joke there is you just applied 2 layers of varnish. So, of course, you're going to have a better... You could have done the same thing with 2 applications of matte, but the difference there is if you over-apply matte varnish, then you get the ghosting, and you get sort of like the faded haze that dries into the crevices and everything like that. And that's just because the resin you're applying has built up too much, and it kills the detail. And then, of course, there are ways to fix that. You can apply, like, olive oil. So there are actually products you can buy, too, as well, that will help fix that issue. But... yeah, for the longest time, I used to think that was true as well. But functionally, there's no real difference. And then, if you are really worried about a metal miniature, hand painting on some kind of thick layer of varnish, like if you have a brush on, anti-shine matte varnish or something like that sort of gets things matte, that's cool. But then applying it through an aerosol or an airbrush with a second coat will give you the best result. Or you can do it with gloss, whatever it is. Anytime you apply it twice, you're always going to be okay. But not necessarily, it's very much a placebo effect. And then, of course, that's why I always prime my bones miniatures. So there we go. There we go. It prevents the only chipping that you would see. Typically, if you don't varnish a plastic miniature, you're really not like in too much trouble unless it's something that you're going to be touching constantly, you know, playing a game every single day nonstop. You may see some wear and tear after like, I don't know, a year or something, like constant application and whatever, and that's just from the oils in your hand breaking stuff down. But metal, always varnish no matter what. Resin, it really doesn't make a difference unless you've applied super thin layers. So like whenever I'm doing high-end painting, so a great example, right, is the Shadow Dragon that we worked on. If I were to touch that before I applied the coats of varnish, a lot of our tinting with the phthalo green, which, by the way, look what I found. That's some money right there. But all of that would rub off like immediately. I would just have to sneeze, right? Because it's airbrush tinting, it's super light. And then Bones miniatures, I have found sometimes the paint will have some issues if you didn't prime them. And I've only never primed a Bones mini like twice in my life. It may actually be less than that. It's so infrequent, right, that I don't even think it's something I would ever do, but I'm sure it's happened at least once. Alright, so I think our cape is finished. Whenever you're layering up the just straight on LED blue, it should be pretty easy for you. This color's so thin anyway in terms of pigment, you shouldn't have too much of a problem layering it up. Even with our standard 1-to-1 ratio of water to paint, really nothing impressive or hard to pull off. Alright, so now, why don't we work on our Old West Rose, her pink. Should I give this a good spin? I haven't touched it in a while. There we go. Now this paint has really nice coverage because I've used it for some other stuff recently. So what I want to do, actually, let's also get out our intense brown. So any, painter's choice on the brown. We just need a darker brown. Oh my gosh, what just made everything show? That's funny. So I'm going to take the brown. So to answer your question, Acid Burn Punk, that's an awesome name. You can see everything that I use in the studio every single day. You can do Josh, exclamation point, Josh's things with an apostrophe, and it'll send you to the Amazon shop. So you can see the exact mixer, everything I use for the wet palettes, the lights that I use, you name it, it's there. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this brown just straight out since we already have it. We may as well be smart with our time here. I'll go ahead and cover all of our bags and our belts. Big thank you to everybody that uses the Amazon link before you do your regular shopping too. If you go to minipainting.studio and you follow the Amazon link that's there, then you just do your regular shopping, they'll still give me a small few penny kickback every time somebody does that. So that is a big help. I appreciate you. I know some people have made some big purchases recently for like work and stuff, so I really appreciate you for doing that. Especially after all the money that I had to spend. I know some of you follow the Facebook page, but I know a few of you just don't, right? Because you're not on Facebook. But my house was broken into while we were sleeping on Thursday evening. And they were scared off by the dog, but we didn't realize what had happened. So our front door was open all night, and Arthur escaped. We assumed as well the dog would have also escaped, but he was too scared or like thought something bad was happening or something. So he actually stayed in this room under my table. So Arthur got lost, and it took us a while to find him. And I immediately had to buy locks and cameras and all kinds of stuff, and then our neighbor across the street has a camera positioned underneath his driveway, and that footage didn't really show us anything. Like, you can see our house on his camera, but it's so dark that, like, it's just a swirling mess of pixels where our front door would be. So it was just a very weird, unfortunate night. But now our front door is pretty much like Fort Knox, and there's all kinds of cameras pointing at it. Really obnoxious, so hopefully that won't happen again. But any help, like buying things through that Amazon link, always, you know, makes my very tiny income a little bit easier to live with, so I do appreciate it. Alright, so we've got all of those things base coated. I feel like, honestly, too, this is something? Did I miss that on? Oh, no, I did that one there, too. Alright, so this is actually a very skinny... There it is. Alright, so now then, taking the Old West Rose, I'm going to take Old West Rose and mix it 50-50 with the brown that I'm using. Let's move over here. Alright, there we go. And this is really just to sort of give us a deeper color to work with, that we can highlight up to a very light kind of bubblegum pink. So obviously we've got the sort of skirt there, and then what I did, the only other place where I think it's kind of visible is up here. Kind of on the top part of her Orbs of Doom. And you can only really reach one, but it's the thought that counts there. It's kind of the idea. Thank you, Cheesebagger. I appreciate that. Perimeter turrets, Nomad, you know, I plan on doing that. Alright, so I'm going to take a little bit of the Noir Black here. Let's do this. And I'm just going to make a dark brown wash. And that's what we'll wash all the bags. Everything else like that with. There we go. And actually, you can probably, you know, we'll just apply this too to the pink. It'll all work out in the end. So we're gonna apply this on everything. And then, obviously, we still have our things that'll be dragon bronze that we need to paint up, and then the other details. So you've got her skin and her hair, and then we'll highlight everything else up. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, this is a low-impact paint job today. Oh, you know, we could do her sheath in we'll do her sheath in ruby red. How about that? I didn't do that on the other one, so we always make one little change, it seems. Okay. Is that it? That's it. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna get ruby red out real quick. You only need a tiny little bit. Man, this is a thick color. Thick color. Alright. I'll just put it down here. Look at that. Man, that is so bright compared to the rest of the mini. That's pretty funny. Let me see. Do you know if you get a kickback on subscribe products? That's interesting. I don't think so. I think it would be like the initial thing, but I don't think it's anything beyond that. The terms are actually very strange. So like, I don't even get, it's not even a consistent like affiliate commission either necessarily. So like they will change per category per 24-hour cycle. So sometimes even like if like home and beauty products, I get 3% of a purchase. The next day it may be like 4.5%, and then for the rest of the week it may be 2%. So like it's so all over the place. But there are lots of restrictions, and that may be one thing that it doesn't necessarily go across, but it's not a big deal. Like I said, I mean, luckily there are enough people out there that are kind enough to use it frequently enough to where it does add up. And then I think this, the next little payout that I get from the system is actually going to be one of the worst ones I've ever had, because it was when we were moving and I just, I wasn't available to like, hey, please, hey, help, hey. But everything else is fine. But yeah, it's like a 2-month delay on everything essentially. All right, so we've got that. Now then, I'm going to use that mixture of our Wild West Rose and my brown, and this is what I'm going to start layering up on from a really dark brown pink at this point. The trim we're going to do in gold, or well, dragon bronze, I guess, technically. But I'm just kind of following the fold here, highlighting up with our brown West Rose. Would that be the term? Honestly, this part's so small up here, we don't need to worry about highlighting that currently. It's such a small little plot of land here. All right, so now we've got just straight up Wild West Rose, or Old West Rose. Gosh, what is it? Old West Rose. I'm sure Wild West Rose would be a little bit brighter if I had to guess. Or maybe it would look too much like Prom Night Pink. I don't know. I really like Prom Night Pink, though. I think that's a awesome sort of like neon magenta-y pink color. Alright, so bringing this color in. And then I'm going to grab my white, and we'll do a brighter highlight on it. I will go ahead and apply a highlight up here into her little in-between armor plate but not section. Okay. Now then, where's my white paint? There it is. My workspace is abnormally clean currently. Oops. Let's see where my That was weird. I'm sure you guys heard that buzzing noise. My phone didn't even have a notification. It's funny when that happens. At least I don't think. Yeah, no, it did not. Weird, huh? Okay. It's probably like a system update thing. Alright, so now I'm just mixing some white in. Whoop. Nothing too crazy, just about a tipful. 50-50. And I'll be using this to try and outline the section. Should be using a different brush. This is a super beater brush. I know I killed one last stream too, but I had 3 that were pretty much on their last leg. Now I have 2. This is one of them. And then some of them aren't necessarily bad. It's just like with the level of finesse that I need on the other painting jobs that I do, other than these that are like tabletop level stuff, they don't necessarily go bad for a lot of painting. It's just I can't use them for what I really need them to do. Okay. Pleased with that. Go around the back side there at the bottom. We got this side. Of course, I spent all this time trying to get it right up against the edge, but I will probably mess it up with the Dragon Bronze, if I had to guess. But it's okay. Procedurally, could have thought about that. Could have thought about it, but we didn't. All right, I'm gonna take the same color and just add a little dash of it up here in the top corner. Pretty much just like that. Cool, we got that rocking and rolling. Now then, we should just go ahead and, since we are here and have the time, we'll go ahead and use our brown to highlight up all of the bags, everything like that. Painter's choice, of course I'm using Intense Brown from the core color set. I did have some people message and ask again, so I'm just going to say it like every stream randomly, I guess, right? We're not changing the core palette. So if you've been like considering maybe I should buy one, I don't know if they're going to change it though, let me know. Which is typically the question that I get. Don't worry. We're not changing it. So if you're wanting to buy it, or buying whatever color you may be missing, right? Like let's say you just don't have Intense Brown. You can grab it. I'm not going to change it. I don't really think it makes much sense, at least at this point, for me to pick like a random different brown and a random different almost black color, right? Like that was kind of my logic, was like, well, I don't really think that is necessary, so. And we haven't really picked colors that don't work. I know we don't use the stone color much, but there are some, at least future kits, where everything is so bright that we definitely would use that to dull things down if required. But really, that's the only color that wasn't as heavily used out of all of them. Highlighting up the boots. Really just the top part of the boot. I'm leaving the bottom sort of a sole section darker. And then I will add a little bit of white and a little bit of the rose color to make kind of our highlight color here. Triple dog highlight. So Chewy, because of the way the licensing stuff works, we will never have any Pathfinder products. Because it's just kind of like, it complicates everything. So we'll never have any Pathfinder minis or paints. Pretty much. But I have been avoiding the Bones line pretty much this entire time. So eventually we're going to start moving into more of those paints. We've only really used, I think, maybe like 2. Everything else, for the most part, has just been MSP paint. So you can see, highlighting up. Now I'm not going to highlight up the strap that's on the shield, just the glove, just to add a little bit different contrast there between the two objects. Okay. Yep, sorry, Sharky. Alright. Pretty pleased with all of that currently. So now, why don't we get out, before we really do anything else, let's highlight up our skeleton key. So I'm going to mix up my skeleton key here. It's so funny, one of my lights here, the LED bar that I have on the left-hand side of my table, since I have 62 inches. Well, I have 93 inches technically, but I have 62 right here, these LED lights. And one of them is the one that I had at ReaperCon last year, and the last day I slammed it into the one of the door frames trying to pack up and leave, and it it's kind of flickers on me randomly, but I mean, I slammed it. I thought it was broken for sure, but it still works. But yeah, if I like tap on it, it like flickers real weird. Okay. Let's see. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, dragons actually wouldn't be a good example miniature for a more advanced Miniature Monday class. Only because they're so one note and you get caught into just scale work and other things like that that aren't really, you don't really learn much from it other than it just takes a little bit longer. You know, so think along the lines of larger orcs, larger barbarians, anything that would be a singular material that we could then texture and tint. So think of like statues, golems, those are really good. Anything that has stone, anything that has a lot of different cloth, anything that has a lot of skin, those are really sort of your best opportunities to actually learn higher level painting. But yeah, dragons, honestly, like, they're cool, but they are so one note that it's just kind of like you get pigeonholed into doing the same thing over and over. And the only reason I say that is because I've done 3 private lessons in the past 2 months where I'm only teaching somebody how to paint dragons, right? And it's kind of like, all right, well, you can do quite a bit to them, but you can only do so much. If you're utilizing an airbrush, you can make them a little bit cooler, but obviously we can't do that with Miniature Monday kits, so I don't even do that with my own Patreon, just because I know that that's a hobby barrier, pretty much. Let's see, the Graveyard Golem. Yeah, that's a good miniature, and I'm definitely using that for something in the future that you guys will see. It's one of my favorite Reaper sculpts, actually. All right, so I'm going back into the buckles. The buckle zones here on all of our belties. Welcome to the buckle zone. Is that what that would sound like? I think so. So I'm just going back to all of the high points here, highlighting up our nice skeleton key. Let me change this down here. There we go. So see if I missed anything. Do you use different rinse water? Not really. Not unless I'm doing something that's really high level. And even then, I would only be concerned with it. I would really only be concerned if I was doing if it was like a really light paint job and I was having to do lots of washing or glazing. But yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. For this miniature, I'm using the same paint and there's no metallic flecks anywhere other than on the metal. So unless you're like, I also don't load my brush full of paint. I think that's a lot of the times what kind of creates unexpected results, right? Which causing problems is that people use a lot more paint than they really need to. And so, you know, if you're doing something that's metal, you're like, oh god, I gotta do a super thick coat, yada yada yada, and the next thing you know, you're wiping off and washing a ton of the metallic paint into your water. For me, it's literally like very thin application. But yeah, only time I do is specific because I'm worried about contaminating like a washed cloth surface or something like that. In the instance where that happens, though, because of course I've had that happen. Really, all you need to do is reapply 2 steps down. So if you are painting something, let's say dark brown, medium brown, light brown, and then all of a sudden you realize there's some metallic flake, then that means you need to recoat stuff in that dark brown and then just highlight your way back up and it'll go away. But yeah, you always move 2 steps down, typically, and you won't have an issue. So on the sword, I'm trying to bake in a highlight here. We're trying to do more true metallic metal on this paint job. So you notice I highlighted the bottom portion going up and the top portion going down. I am gonna go back with some gunmetal blue to bake that in further. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Top going down, bottom going up. Why? Well, that's the easiest way for us to illustrate metallic shine, is inverted reflection. Kind of makes things easy. The shield you could do, just because it's a big flat surface. You could do the same thing, but I'm not too concerned with that. I'm just gonna highlight the top a bit, highlight down the front a bit. And then I want to leave that actually darker because we're gonna do the 2 sort of embossed sections in the dragon bronze. So now I'm gonna go back to our gunmetal blue. I'm gonna mix it in with our skeleton key here. I'm gonna add some water. Gunmetal blue, just like ruby red, can actually be layered because there's some there's more colored pigment in it, so you have more opportunity to do some cool tricks. I'm gonna reapply this color at the base, work my way up to the middle, apply this color at the very top of the sword on the left hand side, work my way towards the middle, and then I'm just gonna go straight up gunmetal blue at the very tip of the sword. Nice and dark blue. And then at the base. Same thing we did on the Duke's shield last time, right? Just really trying to force our shadows. Add more pigment where available. Actually want to add another coat of this to kind of frost it out on me. There we go. Good coverage required. There we are. And just taper it at the middle. Okay, so skin, hair, dragon bronze. Let's do dragon bronze. So we'll do the trim on the skirt, or shirt, whatever this piece of clothing is. I guess since we painted up at the top, it's just like a big tunic. Now then, remember next week we're going to be working on the Undead kit. I'm not sure which miniature is first, actually. I don't know if we should do... Maybe we should do the NPC. We'll do the NPC night first, and that way we'll leave the awesome skeletal chimera for the second week. Then we'll do our hero, and then we'll do... Or we'll do the Lich, maybe? I don't know. We have some opportunity to kind of wiggle a little bit. Then we'll do the visor on her helmet. It's been fun seeing people catch up on the kits, though. I know I saw Byron. He had just attempted the Crystal Golem, which honestly is the most brutal thing that we've ever done in a kit. And that is sort of like, that was definitely too advanced. I didn't know sort of like what to aim for. That was only, what, kit number 2 or something, or 3? Kit number 2? I think it was kit number 2. But we'll never do something like that again. I mean, that was definitely a one-trick pony that was just brutal for people to do at home. So I do appreciate people going back and trying to tackle that one, because I know it was not a lot of fun for people that didn't know what to expect when they were getting into it. It can be a pretty brutal paint job. All right. Other side. Yeah, you gotta take breaks. Honestly, yeah, that one, that paint job was like, I actually don't even have that one. That one's still at Reaper HQ. But that paint job for sure is like, you gotta have brush control and you gotta have glazing control, which, if, you know, all of these kits are meant to be for just tabletop level painters, right? Like people that are newish to the hobby or people that just want gaming quality miniatures. So it's never meant to be anything very difficult. And that, you know, those two skills, fine brush control and glazing, are kind of like not necessarily in that wheelhouse. So I know a lot of people immediately were like, oh god, this is not the easiest thing to paint. But I appreciate everybody that has attempted it, because you obviously learn something whenever you do it. It's definitely worthwhile. So good for everybody that's done it so far. Yeah, going back and glazing over is the whole trick to making it look good, because you don't just want every edge highlighted. In order to sell a crystal effect, which is that idea, or ice, right? You have to allow your edge highlights to have some volume to them. And that's why you glaze over the sort of middle point, and you only have raised highlights on the corners. And that's what a crystal would look like, or a shard of ice, or something like that. And it's not too hard. I mean, you can do it even if you're not a pro at glazing. All glazing is, like, the easiest way to think about glazing, if you're not as used to it, and I can show you on my palette right here the easiest way to kind of do it for yourself. So what I'll do is I'll take, let's see, let's do a different color that we're not using, so that way it's like very obvious and easy to see. So I'm gonna just grab this blonde hair color here, and I'll show you an easy way you can glaze if you're using a, oh, every single week, man, it never fails. We should put this on our bingo card. I always mess up my camera clamp here because it's such a weird little tube. Okay. So there's the paint that I put on the palette. Okay, it's not even there. There we go. There's the paint that I got on the palette. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to turn it into a wash consistency. All right. So there you go. Look, we got perfect flubber consistency. Looks great. But since this is a color with a lot of white, I'm going to add one more brush full of water. Look, still flubber. It looks good. Okay. So this is the same consistency that we use for washes. I think everybody can do that part, right? So now, if I were to pull this, and I'm like, okay guys, I'm gonna glaze, here we go. Oh god, look, there's like so much, right? That's obviously not what you want. That's wash consistency, that's no bueno, okay? But the paint consistency itself, not the volume that you're applying or the amount you're applying with the brush, is correct for a glaze. So what I like to do, if I'm doing quick and dirty painting, which is like 99.9% of everything that I do, I'll make this same consistency on the palette, but what I'll do is I make sure my brush is saturated with water. That way it's not going to suck up all of that wash. And then I just pull down. So you see on the palette how I'm barely pulling down like this. Just boop, 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 boop. Little baby pull. Little tiny little baby dumb amount. Doop, doop, doop. I'm a dumb little painter and I only need a little bit of paint, okay? So now when I go on here and I want to glaze, check it out. That is glaze consistency, right? So that I feel like is the easiest way for someone who's new to painting to figure out how to glaze stuff. Mix a wash first, and then just barely pull that tiny little baby amount. 9 times out of 10, the direction that you're putting your glaze in, so you can see like you can push a glaze at a 45-degree angle, you can pull it, you can do whatever you want, but this is already dry. So I can apply another coat right here at that end, and it'll just get more and more opaque as we go along, right? But that's kind of my easiest tip for people that may be afraid of glazing, is just make a wash first, and then just pull it down on your palette like that, so that way your brush isn't full of the color. It's just there right at the tip. It's just surviving. It's just waiting for you to smash your brush like an absolute animal. But hopefully that helps you if you want to go back. There we go. So, all right, what were we working on? The gold. Okay, cool. So, let's do what we did on our Duke. I'm taking the ruby red, and I made a wash out of it. I'm gonna apply that around all of our gold accents here. Oop, looks like I got a little bit on there. Every once in a while, well, I'm glad I'm good for you, Sharky. I'm glad, I try. I try to make painting as approachable as possible. You know, as my new rebrand says, I want to take you from being a miniature painter to being an artist. That's my goal. And so if I can just kind of demystify techniques and application, it removes the miniature painting aspect of it, and you're just kind of free to be creative and do whatever you want. So as long as I can keep doing that for people, that makes me happy. And that's what I would like to do as much as possible. There we go. So you can see I'm layering it on there. All right. Applying this here. And again, what's nice about using a metallic color that actually has color in it, right? So like the colored metallics that Reaper has, it's because we can wash them down, and then 9 times out of 10, it doesn't actually kill or dilute or dull the metallic beneath. It just adds much more dimension. Now on this larger surface area here on the shield, I'm going to do this application, and then I will go back and we'll add some brown or something darker to actually dull it down, just to shade it out a bit more because it's such a large object. We could do a couple coats of this though, but I would rather add shadow just because the gunmetal that we have on the corresponding metallic is obviously so much darker that it's like, it wouldn't make any sense for us to just rock with that color. Everything else though will be just fine, but this is just too big. So what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of, I don't even know, let's see, what's wet on the palette? Is anything still active? There we go. Nothing's active on this palette right now. So I'm mixing some Noir Black into this. I'm gonna make a glaze out of it, so there you go. We just talked about this. Wash consistency, pulling it into the tip of the brush, and then now I can apply it as if it was more of a shadow. Just like that. I'm pulling it down towards the bottom of each of these sections. You can see how it shades it down nicely. So easy. If you just remove yourself from the stress of perfection and you just go for it. 9 times out of 10 you'll be okay. That other time just reminds you how to cope with things. But, alright, so I like that. A little bit duller, a little bit more shade. So now what we can do is we can go back with our regular Dragon Bronze and highlight things up. I don't think mine has separated on my palette yet, so I don't feel too bad here. Whenever you have metallics on a wet palette, they will separate if it's a really wet surface, meaning the metallic flake and the pigment mixed in will separate and you get really weird coverage. And if that's the case, just if you haven't touched the metal on your wet palette in a while, just apply more onto the palette and just rock from that and it'll work out for you. Because yeah, sometimes you'll be like, why is this color so weird now? Because that's what's going on. They've separated. You're not going to get double presents at Christmas. Right? They're just not going to be nice to you. You can see the nice highlight we have on the gold trim there. It goes nice and red. Looks really, really cool. Nice little trick for you to try out. And then on the other portion here, I'm thinning this down a little bit just so it doesn't drive me insane because I know this is going to be just kind of a weird transition. Reapplying it from the top, tapering it down. Nice and easy. Look at that. That looks so good. Let's do the other side. Let's hope it turns out just as fine. If it doesn't, it's okay. Spoilers, I'm not going to freak out. Just kidding, I will. I throw the miniature across the room. There we go. No, I don't like it. We're going to do another application. I think I doofed. I doofed on it. This side didn't work as well as the other one. Let's see. We'll make this work. I'm not going to give up on that. Let's see. Like this. Little mid-tone glaze. Haha. There we go. We fixed it. Like I'm gonna let it not work. There we go. Cool. Alright, so now what do we got? We got skin and hair. Well, I'm here to tell you. It's not gonna be too hard. I'm sorry. I'll just disconnect the stream for that joke. That was bad. That was a bad one. Alright, so I'm gonna take Old West Rosio and I'll apply it all over the face. Same thing we did on our Duke friend. We're gonna go from Old West Rose, we'll apply a brown wash, and then we will use New Copper, right? Was New Copper a part of this kit? It's gotta be, hold on. I'm sorry, I was looking at this before we started just to make sure I was right. New Copper in there? Where are you at? Yep, cool, all right. You know what's interesting about New Copper is that on the website, the swatch doesn't look at all like the actual color. So just know if you've been wondering about how orange that color is, it's really not. It's like a skin tone. It's very, very light. But it's a good color. It's a nice alternative skin cone. Skin cone? That was neat. But it's a nice way to kind of get a really, really lifelike variance on something. I actually have a miniature here that I used it on. Now this isn't a Reaper miniature, so we'll just ignore that fact here. But if you look at this skin that I've been working on here, so look at this. Doop doop. So these are all Reaper paints, of course. But, so that skin has Old West Rose, New Copper, Tan Flesh, and Rust Brown in it. So that's kind of like my higher level skin tone recipe. But it's a good color to have on hand for those purposes. Alright, so I'm going to make a little wash here. And what this does is it just kind of adds a different temperature variance to our pink. And then let me get out New Copper, make sure it's all spindled up. There we go. So I'm going to take our rose color. I'm going to rotate that a bit. Rose color and then 50-50 mix with our new copper. And then, of course, some water to make sure I can layer it correctly. So, as we always do, same format, same bat format channel. Pushing our highlight up towards the eye, top of the nose, down the side of the mouth, down to the chin. Always the easiest highlight structure when you're working on faces. So do the same thing again. Doesn't matter what shape the face is, you follow that formula, you're good to go. It's the same every single time. Doesn't matter what race, what species, if it's a cyborg, doesn't matter, man. Faces are always structured the same. This side of the face kind of sucks, just because of the positioning, so know that going into it. Not the easiest thing to hit, especially on camera, because of how I have to have it positioned. There we go. Top of the cheek, down the nose. And then I gotta go down the side of the nose. Okay. Top of the nose to you, Andre. Top of the cheek, going in towards the tear duct area. Okay, now I'm gonna add more new copper here. Tear duct, top of the cheek. I'm gonna go up the eyebrow area a little bit. Highlight that up further. Top of the nose. Do the side of the mouth. Chin. Do the very, very back end there of her jawline. But you can see we're going for this nice, really sort of warm, smooth skin tone. There we go. Now then, let's just hide this side of the face to the best of our ability. If anybody picks up this miniature and they're like, hey, what's up with the other side of the face? You just go, hey. Don't be a critic. Be appreciative. Alright. So now, I did brown hair on the other paint job. I think that's dumb. Let's do black hair. That's going to be much more contrasty. It'll make more sense. We can highlight up with something other than just like gray, though. But, alright, so what we're going to do, we're going to take our Noir black here. We'll apply it down. Now I'm just going directly over the zenithal, because that's going to be so much easier to deal with. But, so again, I know that there are more of you guys watching now. There were only like 20 people when I was mentioning it earlier. So one of the things that I was asking for the people that are on the Discord, so it's a good opportunity for me to ask you guys now. We have 90 humans. Well, I say humans. I know Justin's watching, so really we have 89. But the disembodied louder Justin. But so one of the things that we were considering, some of the future kits come with more enemies than we've typically done. So it's kind of the way that it would split is instead of like a boss monster and like one NPC, you get, for example, 5 maybe of a baddie, and then we end up splitting that into 2 episodes. But on the opposite end, we're also fielding the idea of potentially doing higher level paint jobs for you. So a kit could include, our hero and an NPC, typically like it normally does, and then instead of 2 bad guy miniatures, you get maybe a larger baddie or something of that nature, something that might have like a lighting effect on it, whatever. And so instead of getting 4 miniatures, you would get 3 in a pack, same amount of paints, but we end up doing, right, like a high tabletop to a low display level paint job, right? Or we teach a different technique, like we've never done non-metallic metal before on a miniature, so we could do something like that. I know a lot of people request OSL, something with a torch, anything like that. So sort of, something that's more advanced than what we've done typically. So if that's something that is interesting to you, if you have other ideas, we'll never expand the quality and keep the same amount of miniatures, just because we do want to keep it to that 4-episode format, but we can always pare down to make the quality go up for the time invested. So let us know what you think about that. You can leave feedback, more ideas in the Discord if that interests you. You can leave them here too in the chat. I know that a lot of people earlier, before we got started, were leaving some other good ideas as well. So, but the overall consensus, from what I understand, is people are like, yeah, that's a great idea. So that's just something that we're kind of thinking about in the future. Because, yeah, there are some things that, we just wouldn't have enough time to do. Kind of in our one setting scenario that we're used to. So now I'm going to add a little bit of brown and a little bit of white. So I can do some highlights here on her hair. I'm following the curvature of her hair as to where I'm applying the highlights so that it all makes sense. In terms of the structure, I'm just over brushing with the side of my brush with wet paint here too. Because, yeah, typically, so I have different examples here out around me, but a 2-hour paint job is typically as far as we would ever go currently, and we can get quite a bit done. The guy that I just showed you a minute ago with that skin tone, that face alone probably has an hour and a half of work in it, right? So it kind of tells you the difference of what's happening. Right, for example, this Bones 5 miniature here, the Shadow Dragon that we painted, this was what? Like 13 hours of work or something. So it kind of just lets you know the difference. But so anytime that I can kind of expand on time invested, I usually can do a lot more. But yeah, if we have like a 4-hour slot in between 2 different sessions, there's a lot we can do. So that's just kind of the difference there, because sometimes, I'm like, well, I would like to do something a little bit crazier, or, and I'm headed in that direction a little bit. Like, if you guys have seen the images from the Undead kit, the Undead Manticore definitely looks awesome, right? And it's cool and everything, and it's got some glowing eyeballs, whatever. But, you can only go so far in the detailing on the bones and everything, because we do need to get it done in one sitting. So that's just kind of my concept there, that we don't necessarily keep people trapped in one sort of standard of painting, and that way you can kind of grow more as artists as well, and you're not just stuck in tabletop land. But all right, well, I am pleased with what we've got going on here. Remember, you guys can always send me photos of the things that you've been working on. If you're a member of the Reaper Discord, you can send them there. You can send them to the Facebook page. You can drop them in the Reaper Facebook group as well. People do that all the time and tag me, and I see it. So, you can always send me anything you've been working on. I always love to see it. And hopefully, sometime soon, we'll be able to do another community review episode where I get to see all your kits that you've been working on and everything else like that. So, but beyond that, Justin, do you have any exciting announcements for us or anything like that?
Announcements? No. Oh, actually, I do have a little bit of one. I was informed by the powers that be at Reaper that for the next, I think, 5 Reaper Lives, we're going to be giving away a single airbrush plus gift certificates on Thursday night.
There you go. Airbrushes for everybody.
Potentially.
Well, I guess for 5 people, but
Yeah, but at least at every episode, it gives you a reason to watch and hang on at least until we draw the airbrush, and then, feel free to run off.
at the very end of the stream. All right, well, that's definitely cool. Remember, next week we'll be starting out the Undead kit, so that'll be really exciting. And then we've got Anne tomorrow, as well as Proctor, Anne on Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday, we've got our Reaperland and Reaper Lives. And is that it? Or what is Painting Platinum Wednesdays? Or is that Thursdays?
That is Thursdays.
Okay, Thursdays. So Thursday we have Anne, Painting Platinum, and then Reaper Crew. So yeah, make sure you check out everything else. And that's it. I'm pretty sure. So,
Yeah, that's it.
who are we rating today?
Well, I'm taking a look because I had a couple chosen, but then they seem to be offline. Oh, Motor City Ray is streaming. Actually.
Yeah, I actually just saw him. I was thinking that.
Well,
that'd be
let's hit up Motor City. We haven't rated him in a long minute. Let's say hi to Ray.
All right. Yeah, he's working on the Ice Giant Queen. So very fun miniature. But alrighty, guys. We will see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Say hi to Ray for us. Spread the Reaper love. Keep being awesome. And once again, thanks for coming out, guys.
Adios.